episode on your channel Pure English. And as the title of the video dictates, today's topic will be a continuation of what we did in our last live lesson, which was talking about modal verbs and the various uses of them. So as I said in the previous lesson, modal verbs are a group of verbs in English which are considered to be special verbs. And the reason they are special is that they have their own grammatical rules which do not apply on the other verbs in English, and that these verbs are used for various purposes or for various usages. So they can have several meanings, not just like normal verbs which have known fixed meanings, but modal verbs can have more than one meaning or several meanings, so they can be used in distinct or different contexts. We said in our previous lesson that the family of modal verbs contains 9 verbs. These are will, would, can, could, shall, should, may, might, and must. So this is the family of modal verbs or modals. And also there is another relating family to it, which is called the family of semi-modals. And these include verbs like have to and has to, and their equivalents, have to, have got to, and has got to, in addition to other verbs like ought to, like had to, and so forth. In our last live lesson, we talked about can and could, which are 2 of the modal verbs, and we also talked about should, we talked about ought to, and we also tackled may and might. But in today's video, we will tackle a different group of modal verbs. Precisely, we will be talking about must and have to, because we call these modals modals of necessity or modals of obligation. Well, what is meant by necessity or obligation? If you have to do something or if you must do something, this means that you need to do it. You find it essential or necessary to do it, which means that you might be forced somehow or obliged to do it. And to convey this meaning in English, we can use either must or have to. So you can say, I must do something, or you can say, I have to do something. If the subject changes, becomes, for example, he or she or it, you can also say he or she or it must, or you can use has to, because he and she and it do not go with have. So we need to change have into has if the subject turns out to be he or she or it. So instead of saying have to, we use has to. And like all other modals, must, have to, and has to, they need to be followed by the infinitive of the verb. As I said in the previous lesson, this rule has no exceptions. Whenever you have a modal verb in your sentence, the verb which comes after it, and we call it the main verb, this verb must be in the infinitive, which is the verb in its raw form without adding anything to it. You don't add to the verb s, you don't add es, d, or ed, or ing. You just use the raw principal form of the verb, which is form number 1, the base form or the infinitive of the verb. Right. So when you say, for example, I am very hungry, I must eat something. So there is some sort of necessity in this sentence. You say, I must eat something. As you can see, we're using the infinitive of the verb, which is eat. You cannot say, I must eating. That's completely wrong. You cannot say, I must ate, which is the past of eat. You can't say that. You must use the infinitive of the verb. And using must indicates that this action is necessary to happen. Because you feel very hungry, you find it necessary to eat, so you say, I must eat something. Another example, it's a fantastic film. You must see it. As you can see, we're using must to show the obligation or the idea of necessity, and we follow it with the infinitive of the verb. So you say, you must see the film. You must see it. You cannot say, you must seen, or you must saw, or you must seize. All of these are not the infinitive of the verb see, which is just see. So you say, you must see it, right? The windows are very dirty. We must clean them. So there is a necessity that we clean the windows because they are dirty. So we say, the windows are dirty, are very dirty. We must clean them. You cannot say we must cleaned, which is ed form. You cannot say we must cleanse, which is the s form of the verb. So as you can see, when you talk about necessity or when you talk about obligation, we use must and we follow it with the bare infinitive. Okay. Be careful that when you use must, it means that the sentence refers either to the present or to the future. For example, when I say, I must eat something, this means that you haven't eaten yet. So you're talking about an action that will happen in the future. So using must followed by the bare infinitive of the verb or just the infinitive of the verb means that you are talking about an action that's going to happen in the future. We must clean the windows. We haven't cleaned them yet. Okay, you must see the film. You haven't seen it yet. So the point I'm trying to make here is that whenever you use must, and you follow it, of course, with the infinitive of the verb, this means that you're talking about an action or an event that will happen in the future, that hasn't happened yet, right? So if I want to talk about an action that's happening right now at the time of speaking, and I want to use must, what should I do? In this case, you need to follow must with be and verb ing. For example, we have two people speaking here. So one of them is asking the other, where are the kids? So the other person replies by saying, they must be playing outside. You see, they must be playing outside, which means that the action of playing is happening right now at the time of speaking. They must be playing outside. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is using must and following it with the infinitive or the bare infinitive of the verb means that we're talking about an action that is necessary to happen in the future. But using must with be plus verb ing means that the action is happening right now at the time of speaking. So now we tackle the future and we tackled the exact moment of now, the present, right now. How can I talk about necessity in the past? You talk about necessity in the past by using the past form of must. What is the past form of must? It's had to. So must is used for the future and the present. If you want to talk about a past necessity, that's something that was necessary to happen in the past, you use had to. For example, you say, I was very hungry. I had to eat something, you see? So the action of eating happened in the past, and the feeling of hunger was also from the past, a thing of the past. So when you say, I was very hungry. This means that you felt hungry in the past, and that's why you had to eat. So using had to refers to something necessary from the past. We also follow it with the infinitive of the verb. So you say, I had to eat something. Some people mistake this by using the past form of the main verb. So they say, I had to eat, thinking that because they are talking about the past, they need to use the past form of the main verb. But that's incorrect. After any modal or semi-modal, you must use the infinitive of the verb, whether you're talking about the future, the present, or the past. So in this example, when you say, I was very hungry in the past, and that's why I had to eat, using had to in itself necessitates that you use the infinitive of the verb, which is eat. Another example, there were no buses. There were no buses. That's a past action or a past event. Were from the past. So we had to walk to work. We had to walk to work. So as you can see, we're using had to because we're talking about a past event, and we follow it with the infinitive of the verb. You cannot say we had to walked, or we had to walks, or we had to walking. All of these forms are completely wrong. Since you're using a modal or a semi-modal, in this particular example, it's a semi-modal, had to, we must follow it with the bare infinitive of the verb, which is walk. Okay, so there's another form of must which is crucial to talk about, and that's the negative form of must, which means that you mustn't do something. Many people confuse this one with you don't have to do something. Actually, the two things or the two verbs are completely different. When I tell you, you mustn't do something, this is an action of necessary, or the meaning here is about necessity. But instead of necessity to do something, it's necessity not to do something. So when I tell you, you mustn't do something, this means I'm ordering you not to do something. It's the same thing as ordering you to do something, because in both cases, there is a sense of urgency. There is a sense of necessity that you must do that thing. You're obliged to do it. It's essential to do it or not to do it if it's mustn't. But when I say you don't have to, or you don't need to, or just you needn't, this means that there is lack of obligation, there is lack of necessity, meaning that it's not necessary, you're not forced to do something. So let me give you a few examples to demonstrate the difference or the distinction between these various verbs. I must hurry. I must hurry. I mustn't be late. So there is an obligation on me here, which is being early or being on time. I'm not allowed to be late. So I mustn't be late means that I'm still talking about something necessary, but the necessity here is negated, is negative, which means that instead of being necessary to do something, it's necessary not to do something. So when you say, I mustn't be late, there is a sense of obligation or a sense of necessity, but not by doing the action. It's rather by not doing the action. Also, another example, I mustn't forget to phone Jane. I mustn't forget to phone Jane. This means that I am obliged, it's necessary not to forget to call or to phone Jane, which is similar or synonymous to saying I must remember to phone Jane. So the point I'm trying to make here is that mustn't being the negative of must, it doesn't mean absence of necessity or absence of obligation. It still holds the notion or the idea of obligation or necessity, but rather than being a necessity to do something, it's a necessity not to do it. All right. So how can I express the idea of lack of necessity, that something is not essential to do, that you're not forced to do it? So there are several ways to express or to convey this meaning. You can say, for example, we have plenty of time. We don't have to hurry. So don't have to means that you're not obliged or it's not necessary to do something. We have plenty of time. We don't have to hurry. You can also say we don't need to hurry. So don't need to is the same as don't have to. Doesn't need to is the same as doesn't have to. It changes according to the subject in the sentence. You can also say needn't. So you can say we have plenty of time. We needn't hurry. So as you can see, don't need to, don't have to, and needn't, excuse me, the three of them are followed by the infinitive of the verb. So again, I'll say the same example one more time to consolidate the idea in your minds. We have plenty of time. We don't need to hurry. We don't have to hurry. We needn't hurry. Needn't doesn't take to. So if you use needn't, you follow it with the infinitive without to. You cannot say we needn't to hurry. That's perfectly wrong. That's totally incorrect. Needn't must be followed by the bare infinitive of the verb, which is the infinitive of the verb without to. But don't need to and don't have to, they intrinsically have the word to in their structure, so they are followed by the full infinitive of the verb or the to infinitive of it. So we have plenty of time, we don't need to hurry, equal we don't have to hurry, equal we needn't hurry. Some people remove the contraction or the short form of needn't. So they say we need not hurry. That's also correct. But when you do that, when you separate needn't or remove the contraction or the short form from it, so you say we need not hurry rather than saying we needn't hurry, this makes the style more formal. So saying we need not hurry is more formal than saying we needn't hurry. Okay, let me give you another example. I don't need to go yet. I can stay a bit longer. As you can see, this idea or this notion in this sentence is the idea of lack of necessity, lack of obligation. So I don't need to go yet means I don't have to go yet means I needn't or I need not go yet, because I can still stay a bit longer or a little longer. So now you can see the difference between don't have to and mustn't. You can see the difference between don't need to and mustn't. You can see the difference between needn't and mustn't. Actually, those are completely different verbs. Mustn't dictates the idea of necessity. It's still necessary that you not do something. So the idea of necessity is still there, but not for doing the action. Rather, it's for not doing the action. Whereas don't have to, don't need to, or needn't, they indicate the idea of absence of necessity or lack of obligation, meaning that you are not obliged, you're not forced to do the action, or you don't find it necessary to do the action. Right. So what about have to and has to? As I said, have to and has to are synonyms. The thing is, have to is used with some subjects and has to is used with others. So has to is used with the subject pronouns he and she and it or any other nouns equivalent to them, whereas have to is used with the subject pronouns I, we, you and they or any other nouns equivalent to them. And as I mentioned earlier, have to and has to also are used to convey the idea of obligation or the idea of necessity. For example, you say, I'll be late for work tomorrow. I have to go to the dentist. I will be late for work tomorrow. I have to go to the dentist. Which means it's necessary to go to the dentist. I am obliged to go to the dentist. Another example, you have to pass a test before you can get a driving license. So it is necessary, it's compulsory, you are forced to have a test and to pass that test in order to be able to get a driving license. So have to, just like has to, are used to convey the notion or the idea of obligation or necessity. And the past of them is also had to. So had to is very useful for us because it refers to the idea of obligation in the past, and it's deemed or considered the past of the three verbs: have to, has to, and must. So the three verbs have to, has to, and must, the three verbs have the same past form, which is had to. Another example, Jane starts work at 7 o'clock. So she has to get up at 6. She's obliged. She's forced to get up at 6. So she has to get up at 6. As you can see, we are using has because the subject is Jane, which is equivalent to she, and she goes with has, not with have. So she has to get up. We use the infinitive, get up. You cannot say she has to gets. That's absolutely wrong. Unacceptable in English grammar. Let's take another example on the past. We can say, for instance, I was late for work yesterday. I was late, that's past. I was late for work yesterday. I had to go to the dentist. Because you're talking about a past event or a past action, you cannot say I have to go to the dentist. You must use the past form of it, which is had to. So you say I had to go to the dentist. So the question here, which you might be wondering about, what's the difference between must and have to? So what's the difference between saying I must do something or I have to do something? Well, in grammatical language, we say that must is used for internal obligations. We call it like that, internal obligations. Whereas have to and its sister has to, those are used for external obligations. So what does this mean? When you use must, it means that you oblige yourself to do the action. This obligation is imposed by yourself, and that's why we call it an internal obligation. I force myself to do that action. I make it necessary for myself to do. If I don't do it, there will not be a punishment. There will not be any bad consequences, but I find it necessary. It's a personal viewpoint. It's a personal opinion. But when you say, I have to do something, this makes the obligation external, meaning that there is an external authority that forces you to do the action. It's not something personal. It's not a personal obligation that you impose on yourself. Rather, it's an external obligation which is imposed on you by an external force or an external authority. Let's look at the examples that we have just given. When I said, I'll be late for work tomorrow, I have to go to the dentist. So the dentist has already given me an appointment, and I must meet that appointment. I must be there. So the external obligation is the appointment given to me or set for me by the dentist. So I have to go to the dentist. When I say Jane starts work at 7 o'clock, she has to get up at 6. It's an external obligation. Her work requires her to be at work at 7 o'clock. So she's obliged externally to wake up early enough to be able to catch her work. But when I say, I am feeling hungry or I feel hungry, I must eat something, there will be no punishment if I don't eat. So if I don't eat this thing here, there won't be any punishment or any consequences, but I oblige myself to eat because I feel hungry. So we say I must eat something rather than I have to eat something. But when I say you have to pass a test before you get your driving license, so getting the driving license necessitates or requires you to pass a test, which means that the obligation is imposed on you externally. Passing the test or having the test first and then passing it is forced or is imposed on you by an external authority rather than you imposing it on yourself. This is the key point of today's live lesson, which is how to use must and have to, because the two look similar. They have a very similar meaning, if not identical. The meanings of them are identical almost, but the thing is, grammatically, each one of them has its own and appropriate usage. Must is used if the internal obligation is the case, if it's a personal obligation, if you oblige or force yourself to do that certain action, and there will be no punishment or no bad consequences. But have to is used, and its sister as well, has to. These are used if the obligation is imposed on you by an external authority rather than you forcing yourself to do it or imposing the action on yourself. So when you are giving your personal opinion about something, about an obligation in a certain action, we use must. But if you are talking about an external authority that you have no choice in, that you have no, your hands are tied, you cannot do anything about it, so we use have to for that purpose. Must is also used when you are making a strong invitation. For example, someone is visiting your city. Let's say that you live in London, so your friend Jacques tell you that he will come to London soon. So you tell them, you must come and visit me. You must come and visit me. I'm not talking here about an obligation or something that Jacques is forced to do, but you're making a strong invitation to them, okay? You can also use must to give a strong piece of advice to somebody. Normally, the modal verbs which are used to give advice are should, ought to, and had better. We talked about the three in our previous live lesson when we were talking about modals of advice. But you can also use must for a strong piece of advice. What does that mean? It means that the person you're advising is a person close to you, is a person that you know very well. So the relationship between you and them allows you to give them the advice in a strong fashion, in a powerful manner. So you say, for example, your medical examinations look horrible. You must quit smoking. So let's say that you are talking to your brother or to your mother, okay? So you are giving them a powerful or a strong piece of advice by using must. So you tell them your meds or your medical examinations look horrible. You must quit smoking. That's a stronger version of you should quit smoking. So if you know the person very well, if the relationship between you and them is close and strong, you can give them a strong piece of advice by using the modal must. Whereas if the relationship that collects you with that person is distant or not very strong, it's better to use should. It's politer and more appropriate to use should or ought to. Okay, so to wrap up or to recapitulate on this lesson, we were talking about another group of modals and semi-modals. We were talking about the modals must and needn't, and the semi-modals have to, had to, has to, don't have to, don't need to. One last point which I'd like to highlight for you is we have also two semi-modals which are called have got to and has got to. These two semi-modals are synonymous to have to and has to respectively. So have got to is a synonym to have to. They have the same meaning. Has got to is synonymous to has to. They have the same meaning. But have got to and has got to are more common in British English rather than American English, and they are more informal. They are used more in spoken English, in colloquial English, which means informal English, or in daily conversations and everyday dialogues. So have got to is the same as have to. Has got to is the same as has to, but these two, have got to and has got to, are more common in British English rather than in American English, in addition to the fact that they are used in spoken English or in daily conversations. Here we come to the end of our live lesson today. I hope it was beneficial and useful for you. And as usual, I like to call on all of you to subscribe to the channel if the content is appealing to you. Interact with the videos by liking them. And please subscribe to the channel to grow our community and to expand the reach of my videos. I'm just making these videos for educational purposes to help any English learner to improve their English, whether it's grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, skills like reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So please help me to get my content to more and more people by sharing the videos to your friends and family members, by liking it, by dropping down any comments, any suggestions or remarks that you would like to make, and to subscribing to the channel if you find my content appealing to you. I don't want to bore you by talking more than that. And I'd like to thank you very much, of course, for your attentive listening and attending my live lesson today. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson, being recorded or live. So enjoy the rest of your day and goodbye for now.